Hey guys, this is Ms. Suber with a refresher video on the 3 strategies with multiplying. If you were at school on Monday or if you were at school on Tuesday, the lesson you had with your teacher was all about how we can multiply a 2-digit number times a 1-digit number. And we talked about 3 particular strategies. And I'm just going to go through and do one example of each strategy, so that if you forgot how to do it from our lesson in class, you can go back and watch this video at home, and it should help you refresh your memory on how to do each strategy. So I'm just going to use the example 23 times 5. Okay, right now we're just doing a 2-digit times a 1-digit. Later in the week we will be moving to a 3-digit or a 4-digit number times a 1-digit number. But we're going to stick with this one for now. Our first box, and you can pull your sheet out that you did in class with your teacher, but our first box, we're just talking about how we use words when we're talking about multiplication. Usually we would read this 23 times 5. But there's another way to say this. We can also say this means the same thing as 23 groups of 5. Okay, so just remember that this symbol right here can mean the word times, or it could also mean the words groups of. So this is read as 23 groups of 5, okay? You could also, if this was written the other way, and if this problem was written 5 times 23, you could read this as 5 groups of 23. So it can be worded the same way, just backwards, okay? But if we're only looking at this right here, we're wanting to say 23 groups of 5, okay? The first strategy that you learned in class was probably the standard algorithm. Standard algorithm is another way of saying the traditional way of multiplying. This is probably the way your parents or your grandparents learned how to multiply when they were in school. I know this is the way that I learned, and I know this is the way all of your teachers learned how to multiply when they were in school. But in this day and age, we have the opportunity to be able to teach you more than one strategy, because not all of us learn the same way, and we all have different ways of processing things in our brains. And sometimes, if this is your favorite way of multiplying, it may not be another student's or another person's favorite way of multiplying. It may not make as much sense to them looking at it this way, and they may use one of the different strategies. So that's why we're teaching you all 3 different strategies. So you can pick the best one for you, and that's what you can use whenever you're taking your assessments. But the traditional way to multiply, and I'm going to use this problem from over here, we're going to set it up going up and down, which is vertically. So we're going to line up our numbers. Our ones places are lined up and our tens are lined up. I don't have a tens place here, so I just don't write anything. All right. Now, I'm going to take my 5 and I'm going to multiply it to the ones place. So I'm going to say 5 times 3. Well, I know, I'm going to write my steps down here. 5 times 3. I know 5 times 3 is 15, okay? But I can't just write a 2-digit number down here because I only have room for a ones place digit to go there. So I'm going to take the ones place, which is a 5, and then my tens place in the number 15 is going to be added over here, okay? So all I did there, that was my first step. I took the 5 and I multiplied it to this ones place, and I got 15. My 5 goes down here, and I add my 1 up here, okay? Now, you can leave that 3 there, but you're done with that 3, so if it helps you to mark it out so you don't use it again, that is okay, okay? Now I have to take my 5 and I have to take it to the tens place. So I'm going to draw a little arrow taking it to the tens place just to remind me that that's where I went next. Okay, so that's my next step. I'm going to do 5 times 2. 5 times 2, and I know 5 times 2 equals 10. But don't forget, you have to add any numbers that were thrown over here whenever you did this part. Okay, so I have to add 1 to it. So 10 plus 1. If I do 10 plus 1, that gives me 11. All right, so usually if I had another number to the left in a 100 spot, I would only put 1 here, and I'd carry another 1 over to add to the 100 spot. But I don't have anything here, so I'm finished. I'm just going to put my 11 down here, and I'm done. So my answer would be 115. 23 times 5 is 115. Again, another way of saying that is 23 groups of 5 is 115. Okay? So that's the traditional way. That's just when I see it written up and down. A lot of your core bytes multiplication is written like this. So now you'll be able to do some of those when you get to them. All right. The second way we learned in class was the distributive property, using that distributive property that we have already learned how to use, and using that to work out a multiplication problem. All right, so this is the distributive property. And I'm gonna use that the same numbers I used up here, because if I use them down here and I do it a different way, I should still get an answer of 115 because I'm just using a different strategy. And if my answer doesn't match the answer up here, then that means I've done something wrong in one of these places, okay? So I'm going to use, this time I'm going to write it sideways because it's easier to see it broken down. So I'm going to do 23 times 5. I'll leave a little space for my answer, all right? So when we do the distributive property, we want to take the biggest number and we want to split it up into the different place values. So if I have a 23 here, I know my 2 is worth 20 because it's in the 10 spot. And if you can't remember that, you can put a little T for tens, and you could put a little O for the 1 spot. So that can remind you that if this 2 is in the tens, you got to say, okay, well, it's 2 times 10. It's in the tens. That gives me 20. All right, I'm going to put that 20 over here to the left, and then I'm going to put my 3 is in the 1 spot. So my 3 is just worth 3 because it's only in the 1 position. So I'm going to put my 3 over here. And then I've divided this first big number up into my 20 and my 3. But then I've got to use this guy. I got to use this number 5. And I've been telling my students, the number 5 is really lonely over here by himself, okay, or by herself. I've got to let my 5 go visit his friend 20 and go visit his friend 3. So my 5 gets to come multiply the 20, and he gets to multiply the 3. And when he goes and visits those friends, I tell my students, he gives them a big hug. Those are also known as parentheses, okay? Parentheses just lets you know that when you're working out this problem, whatever is in parentheses, you need to do first, okay? And then we're going to put a big plus sign in the middle. So my 5 went and visited my 20, and then he went and visited the other side, which was my 3, and gave them big hugs, which are my parentheses, okay? And I have a plus sign in the middle, all right? So I distributed that 5 to the 20, and I distributed the 5 to the 3, right? So now I get to work out the rest of my problem. Again, if it's in parentheses, you need to do it first. So we don't add anything yet. We got to do our group. I know 20 times 5. Well, I know a trick. I know I can pretend if that 0 is on the end of my number, I can pretend that 0 is not there. And I can say, well, what's 5 times 2? I know 5 times 2 is 10, but I've got to add that 0 to the end, which is 100. All right, so 20 times 5 is 100, right? And then I want to go do this side because it's in a group too. It's in a hug. It's in parentheses. So 3 times 5 I know is 15. And then I'm going to bring that plus sign down. All right? So now we're going to do 100 plus 15. And if I don't know that 100 plus 15 is 115, then I can always go over here to the side and I can set up my problem and add them up, going up and down. All right? So I got 115 as my answer. And if we look back up here, that matches. That means I'm doing something right. I'm getting the same answer no matter what strategy I use. Okay? So just to go back through the distributive property one more time, you take your bigger number. Sorry, my light went out. Let me turn the lights back on, guys. All right. Sorry, I didn't want you to not be able to see. All right, so I take my big number, I divide it into my tens and my ones. So my twos, my tens, 20. My 3 is my ones, a 3. And then I have to take this lonely number over here that's by himself and distribute him to both sides. So he gets to go to this friend, and he gets to go to this friend. And then from here, I have to put a plus sign in the middle. And then I just work both sides out, and then I add both sides together. That's the distributive property. All right, guys, the last strategy for multiplying is the area model. When we think of area, we think of area and perimeter. We know our area of a shape is what is on the inside of a shape. And with area model, the first thing you're going to do is draw a rectangle. It doesn't matter what your problem is. You're always going to draw that rectangle first. Our problem is 23 times 5. So I'm going to put my big number on the long side because it's my long number, my big number. All right. I'm going to put a line going down the middle. All right. And I'm multiplying, put my little multiplication symbol, by 5. So I'm going to put my 5 on the side. He's my little guy. He's going to go on the small side. All right. Now I'm going to multiply. I'm going to do my multiplying step next. I set my box up, have my big number on top, smaller number on the side. Now I know my 2 is worth, it's in the tens place, so it's worth 20. 2 times 10 is 20, okay? It's in the tens place. So 20 times 5. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. So there's that side's answer. Okay, I'm not finished. I got to do this side. I know my 3 is worth just 3 because it's in the ones place. Okay, so 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, I have both sides answered, but now I have to combine them just like I did over here. I have my 100 plus, I have my 100 plus my 15. Sorry guys, my light went out again. All right, just like on the distributive property. 100 plus 15 is 115. That's my final answer. Okay, area model is kind of like a mixture between your distributive property and your traditional property. Your distributive comes in here where you have to decide, okay, this is in my tens place, this is in my ones place, just like we did over here. But then your traditional comes in because you're actually doing the traditional way right here in each box. You're multiplying up and down, right? But then you have to add them, kind of like you do over here, to find the answer. I personally think area model just sets it up and it's a little more organized than the other two ways. But again, you get to pick which way is best for you. Those are the 3 strategies we're learning in class this week on Monday and Tuesday. I hope this was a good refresher video. We will see you back in class on Thursday and Friday, guys. If you have any other questions, reach out to your teachers.